Hello everyone, good evening. Good evening. I welcome you to Hello everyone out there, good evening. My name once again is Oluwafisa Yakinolu. If this is the first time you are joining us, this is the third installment of our recordings on software, and tonight we are going to be talking about software once again, and this night we are going to be talking about how to hire a programmer. So let's assume that you want to get into the software business, you want to get into creating and selling softwares. Now, please, this is the third installment of this series, like I just said. So if you are here tonight and you have not seen any of the previous two videos, in the first video I laid out proof of why you should get into software. I shared examples and all of that. In the second video I talked about some of the profitable business models you can think of when it comes to software, and I went into some detail to share with you those areas of software that you can consider as you try or as you go ahead to tap the market. Now today I want to answer the question, how do I hire a programmer? Because a lot of people have been asking me since the series started, what if I don't know how to write code? What if I am just I want to get into the software game but I don't know how to write code? What do I do? Now tonight I want to answer that by telling you that even if you don't know how to write code, if you are not a programmer, it does not mean that you cannot get into the software business and create applications that you can sell. It does not mean you cannot. What you just need to do is you need to know how to hire a programmer. And once you know how to hire a programmer, your programmer will help you translate the ideas you have into cash. So tonight I will cover how to hire a programmer. Now when it comes to you creating your own softwares and you going out there to hire a programmer to help you translate your ideas to the ideas you have into working softwares. Now, one of the first things you need to understand is that for you to do that, then you need to go through a process of design, you need to go through a process of writing the software, then you need to go through a process of testing the software. Now, those are the three things that you need to do. There has to be the design of the software, how the software will look, how the software will operate, and all of that. Then there has to be the process of actually writing the software, and then the process of testing the software. And for you to do this, then it means you have to have someone to assist you if you cannot code. Now the first thing you should understand is that when it comes to programming, the best programmers out there don't come cheap. You need to understand that the best programmers out there don't come cheap. Most of the time I see people who want to hire a programmer and then they are looking for someone who will just collect a very small amount of money from them, only for them to at the end of the day get the job done and then they start complaining. So you need to understand that when it comes to you hiring a programmer, the best of programmers won't come cheap. They won't come cheap because they are always occupied. Because they are good at what they do, they are almost always occupied. And because they are always occupied, you find out that those who hire them are those who are ready to pay top dollar for them. So you have to have that at the back of your mind, that programmers don't come cheap. In today's world, programmers are in high demand, and the very best of them usually attract top dollar. So if you want to hire a programmer to do a job for you, you have to have at the back of your mind that you should be willing to at least put down some money to get your ideas translated into working applications. Now also, you cannot expect to hire the cheapest programmer you find and expect the best quality job. You can't expect that. Now listen, if you want to pay peanuts, then you should be ready to hire monkeys. That's something you should have at the back of your mind. So if you are going to hire a programmer to do your jobs for you, if you are going to hire a programmer to help you translate your ideas into working applications, then you should be ready to put down some money. So have that at the back of your mind, that you can't just go out there and just hire someone and then not pay. I've seen people who want to get a programmer to do jobs for them and they don't want to pay. I've seen people who want to get a programmer to do jobs for them and they just want to give the programmer just any kind of money, and at the end of the day they run into problems and then they start complaining, oh, these programmers, they don't work, they don't do this, they don't do that. So have that at the back of your mind. The programmer who wants to work for you is also out, he has a family, he has things to take care of, he has to look good and all of that. So he has to charge you for the jobs that he does for you, and that's how he or she also makes his money. So have that at the back of your mind, that when you are going to hire a programmer and then you are going to hire someone who does high quality jobs for you, then also you should be ready and you should be willing and you should have at the back of your mind that you are going to pay for that job. Now, that's out of the way. I'm going to cover quickly just about 10-15 points, things that you need to have in mind when you go out there to hire a programmer. And I'll start with number one. When it comes to hiring a programmer to help you create your software, now please remember, it's very, very important. If you are watching this is part 3 of a series that we started like a week ago. So there's part 1, there's part 2. If you don't go through part 1 and part 2, you may find some of what we are discussing tonight to be a bit abstract. In part 1, we looked at the software business and why I believe software is an opportunity that you should consider and tap into. In part 2, I gave you different models that you can use to create your softwares and launch profitable softwares in the marketplace. Now this is step 3. I'm talking about you now having an idea and taking that idea to a programmer who helps you create, who helps you translate those ideas into working applications that you can take to the marketplace and charge a fee for. Now, number 1, as a business person who wants to sell software, you want to hire a programmer. The first thing you want to do is that you want to make a list of all the features you would like your software to have. This should be the first thing you do. You see, I've seen a lot of people who want to get into software and then the first thing they just do is that they just call up a programmer and just tell the programmer, oh, I want to build this, I want to build that. And I'm like, you don't even know what you want to do and you're already talking to a programmer. Yeah, don't you know you run into problems? So the first thing you want to do is that you want to make a list of those things you would want your software to do. That should be the first thing you do, even before you talk to a programmer at all. The first thing you want to do is make a list of those things that you want your software to do. I keep emphasizing this because it is very, very important. What would you like your software to do? How would you like your software to operate? All right. Now, Once you make that list will now be taken into step 2, and you can now begin to define everything you want the programmer to do for you in step 2. Now let me just go to the board and tell you why it is important for you to make a list. You see, when you don't make a list of the features, even explaining the concepts and your ideas to your programmer may sometimes be very, very difficult for you. So let me give you an example of how making a list becomes very important as regards you and your software and you and your programmer. So if you want to start a software, for instance, here is what you should do. Number 1, here is what you should do. The first thing you want to do is that you want to create a list, like I said. And by talking about creating a list, you want to create something like a flow of how the software should work. And that flow should describe everything you expect the software to do. So for instance, let's assume you are building a web application and you say, okay, this web application I want to build, here are the things I want the web application to do. So you are saying, for instance, all right, that a user comes to my website, and then once that user comes to my website, I want the user to be able to do a registration. Okay? So the user comes to my website and then the user registers. All right? The next thing I want the user to do after registering on my website is, I want that user after registering to be able to confirm the registration they've done. Registration. So I want the user to confirm the registration that he or she has done. And then after registration, what next? After registration, I want the user to be able to log in. Okay? Now, once the user logs into the account, what next will the user do? I want the user to be able to update his or her profile. Okay, then I want this user, after the user is able to update his or her profile, I want the user to be able to see his account balance. Now, what you are doing when you break things down like this is that you are creating a step-by-step flow of how you expect your application to work. And it is very, very important you do these things. You see, once you have broken down the steps like this, now don't forget, you are not a programmer. You are trying to communicate your ideas to a programmer. Now, once you have broken down your steps like this, it kind of shows the programmer what you have in mind. It's very important. So, and it also shows the programmer that you have done a kind of study and you have broken down the process and you know what you want. You know what you want to do. You know how you want to do it. So once you have broken it down like this, then step 2 will now be for you to now begin to define what the programmer will do for you. So since you know that there's going to be a registration, and since you know that after the registration there's going to be a confirmation, a login, a profile update, an account balance, then you can now combine all of this and tell the user and tell the programmer that you want, you can now tell the programmer that, okay, my programmer, this application that I want to do, I want a user registration system in place. And then you can now explain that the user registration system I want has to do with registration. After registration, there should be a confirmation of email after registration. Then the account that has just been registered should have a login and a logout function. So you have now combined all those steps into a user registration system, and then you define that as part of the project requirements. It's very, very important you do that. So you break down all your steps and then you define all your steps. You have to do this. Don't ever be lazy and not define your steps, because you see, the programmer is not a witch. The programmer is not a wizard that will just know automatically what you expect him to do. The programmer needs you to guide him or her into what should be built. And don't forget that when it comes to programming, what you are doing is you are writing code. So whatever code it is that you have not written, or whatever problems you have not solved in code, will at the end of the day not be a part of the final result. And that is why you need to think as much as possible about what you want to build before you even talk to the programmer at all. Number 3 is make sure that you get examples of projects that are similar to what you want to do. There are so many sites online. Do your research. Don't be lazy. That's the third thing you need to know. You need to go out there and find projects that are similar to what you intend to build, so that you can use those projects as part of your research. One, you can use those projects as a benchmark for the programmer, and then you can show the programmer those projects, so that when the programmer is building, you have a benchmark by which you can monitor the progress and monitor how well that job has been done. That's number 3. Number four, if you are using a local programmer for your project, please, before the contract is signed, don't give out too much detail. Now, I am of that opinion because personally I've seen people come to me over and over again who shared details of their projects with programmers, only to discover later that the programmers went ahead, after telling them that they are not interested in the project, went ahead to build those projects. So I've seen cases like that, and that is why when you are discussing your project with a programmer, especially if the programmer is local, if the programmer is not local and project is targeted at a local market, then you may not really have a problem, because the programmer may build something and not target it to your own target audience, your target market. So if your programmer is local, you may want to consider the fact that until a contract is signed, you don't want to release too much information, so that someone the programmer or whoever it is you are discussing with does not go ahead to run with your idea and implement your ideas behind your back. So if you have researched very well, you may decide to hide some details, like details of how you would market the application, details of the strategies you are going to use, details of business process. You may decide to hide upstream providers, because sometimes your application will be dependent on other software, so you may decide to hide providers. Let's assume you are building an application that sends text messages, for instance. You may decide to hide the providers on top of which you are going to rest the text messages. So you may decide to hide your APIs at the initial stage of discussing with the programmer. The reason why you are doing this is just to protect yourself, to protect your ideas, and to protect your business. But once a contract has been signed, then you need to be more open and you need to share more of the project details with the programmer, because you cannot put the programmer in the dark. The moment you put your programmer in the dark, you would have problems with your jobs later. Number 5 is that you need to post a job description. Now, what I have shared with you from number 1 to like number 3 or 4 all come to one point, which eventually means that what you want to do is that you want to be able to describe your project to your programmer. And in order for you to be able to describe your project to your programmer, you want to come up with a job description. So especially if you are going to hire a programmer online, you need to describe your job. Now I deliberately decided not to come up with any examples for this. I will just search together and see how people have written job descriptions. Let's just go online and try to see some job descriptions that have been written by people who are looking to hire programmers, and then we take it up from that point. So the next thing you want to do is that you want to post a job description. Now your job description will now be something like, okay, I need a programmer to build me X, Y, and Z. Here are examples of what I want to build. And then once you do that, you will get bids. You get programmers from all over the world will bid for that project and tell you, okay, I can get this done for you in so and so amount of time for so and so price. Let's just go over and see some examples of people who have posted job descriptions. So I'm just going to switch to my browser now, and then we'll look at that together quickly. Let's look at a site like let's see Upwork. There are so many sites like that where you can get jobs done for you. We have Upwork, we have freelancer.com. So I'm just going to search randomly and let's see if we can get some job descriptions that have been posted by other people, so that we can just go ahead from that point. So here is Upwork.com. I'm going to try and see if I can get, okay, we have web development, we have mobile development, we have design, writing, admin support, and things like that. I'm just going to go under web development and let's see what's there. Web development. Okay, find quality freelancers and agencies for web development. So let's see. Okay, now what we are seeing here now are not jobs. What we are seeing here are developers advertising their services. So for instance, we have, this is a PHP, Node.js, and Go developer who is advertising his services at $35 per hour. So depending on how complex your project is, if you are going to need the programmer for 2 days or 3 days at $35 per hour, you can estimate how much you are going to pay. You have experienced Drupal developer and PHP. This is $48 per hour. So here are profiles. Let's see if we can get job description. Like I said, I deliberately did not search for this ahead of time. I just want to do it so that you see how you can post, or let's just look at examples of job requests that have been posted. So once you've done your research, you can also create an account with these websites and post a job request also. Here we'll have developers advertising themselves but you can also post a job request. Let me see if I can kind of see jobs. Okay, this is freelancer.com. Let me look at jobs. I'm going to just filter. Can I do a filter? Browse all jobs. Let me look at PHP jobs. Okay, so here we have this person is looking for professional code leads, blah 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 blah. Is looking at a price of about $10 to $30 and is looking for programmers to bid on the job. So let me just look at if I can see an example. Upgrade this. Need someone to write me between 50 to 100 questions about array in PHP. I'm looking for build me a reservation app using Angular. Okay, here's an example. So here's another example. PHP Laravel app development. Here's another example. So you can see people posting their jobs and looking for programmers to complete those jobs for them. So you have here PHP Laravel application development, and then the person is now saying we want to add 2 features to an existing healthcare EMR system built using Laravel and MySQL. One is import export feature via Excel, blah 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 blah. So you see a description of the project, and that is what you should also do. You should describe your project. So if you are going to hire a programmer to do your job for you, you want to describe your project. So you have a description of the project, and then okay, this is actually a bidding system. So there's a description of the project, and then you can see, okay, these are similar jobs. Okay, there's a description of the project, other jobs from this employer. Then there's a budget. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. There's a budget. So this project now is budgeted at between 250 to 750 USD. Now don't forget, this is not a full-blown app. They just want to add features to something that has been built before. So you can see that this particular application is actually in the healthcare, is in the area of healthcare, and then they just want to add additional features to that project, and they are budgeting between $250 to $750. And then once that project has been submitted, you would get programmers who now will reply to that project. Once they see the details of the job, they will reply to it and they will tell you how much they feel they can complete it and things like that. So you can see you are getting replies here. All right, their clients, Laravel, MySQL are all my expertise in the past. Please contact me. I think your job is 110% possible for me to complete. If you share your project, I can start immediately. So here is a programmer who is willing to take on this project, and he is saying that he should be able to complete the project for $500 in 7 days. And then you have, here's another programmer who is willing to also take on the project. He's saying he can complete it in $555 in 10 days. Here's another programmer, he's willing to take on the project. He wants to do it for $750 in 10 days. Here's another programmer ready to complete the project. He wants to do it in $555 in 20 days. So you get people who will now give you a response about your project. Once they see the detail of your project, they give you a response about your project, and they tell you if they can complete it, in how much time, for how much, and things like that. The question now is, how do you pick which one of all these programmers to use? How do you pick the one that you should go with? Because you will see a lot of people will tell you, oh, I have 10 years experience, I have 7 years experience, I have this, I have that. And sometimes it can be very, very confusing. And then I want you to take note of how much programmers are charging. Okay, look at this project for instance, and you're already seeing people charging $500, for doing something in 7 days. Someone is saying he would do it in 10 days for $750. And if you watch the first and second part of the video, I told you that to develop a full-blown software, you would need between about $1,000 to about $3,000, $4,000, and this is confirming that. So you see, $555 in 20 days. I think the cheapest so far here is $250 in 4 days. So it's now left for you now to now sift through all of these programmers and try to find the one that you feel that would give you what you want at a price that is reasonable. And that brings me to another point. How do you pick which one of all these programmers to work with? So step one, you need to ask for previous work done. Once you contact a programmer and you start communicating about your project, the first thing you want to see is what has this programmer done in the past. Of course, don't forget that is not a guarantee that the programmer will deliver. That's not really a guarantee, but at least it's a starting point. So you want to find out first what that programmer has done before. Once you see what the programmer has done before, you can start to build up an idea of if that programmer can deliver or not. So what you want to do is that you want to review each of the responses you get, and you want to open up a channel of communication with the programmers to try to evaluate what they can do in terms of technical performance. So you want to talk to them, you want to probably do a Zoom call. There's a Zoom call where you can see the programmer live and you can discuss in detail your project. You can share with them, they can give you input, and then you reach a midpoint, you discuss on price and all of that. So you need to check what they have done. Let them show you what they have done, and let them show you what they are willing to do for you on your project. But you see, the fact that a programmer is technically competent and the price is good or the price looks good does not mean you should hire that person. You also need to try to evaluate the attitude of the person. Let me give you an example. Recently, I bought a piece of software personally, and I intended to use that software to complete a project. Now, in the course of using that particular software I bought to complete the project I wanted to do, I discovered that the software in question had a lot of errors in the software. There were just too many errors, and I was having a difficult time compiling I'm trying to break it down so that I don't get too technical. I was having a difficult time compiling that particular software to give me what I wanted. So when I discovered the error, at first my initial reaction was to dump the software package and just buy something else to make my life easy. But on second thought, I was like, okay, I just paid for this. Why should I just dump it without even trying to contact the creator of the software? So I wrote the creator of the software and I told them that there were errors with the application. Now, when I wrote them to tell them that there were errors with the application, they replied very fast and they made a promise to fix those errors. And then after about a day, they got back to me that the errors had been fixed. Now, I took the correction that they said they made in code. I tried to use the software again, and I discovered that there were still errors in the software. So I wrote back to them to let them know that there were errors in the software. Now, they wrote back to me to tell me to outline the errors that I was experiencing in the software. And I was like, I'm telling you there's an error. You are asking me to outline the errors. That's supposed to be your job. I have reported it to you. You should be able to track the errors down and fix. Okay? So You want me to tell you the errors? No problem. I drew out some of the errors and gave them examples of some of the errors that I discovered, and I expect that they fixed. They got back to me to tell me that they fixed the errors. I ran it again and I discovered that the errors were still present. So I wrote them back to tell them, oh, these errors are still present. It is not fixed. Now, at that point, the owner of the software just wrote me back out of the blues and was very nasty. I was like, oh, if you want to take your money back, take your money back. Don't give us any problem. And I had to write the Oyibo guy back, and I was like, come, I just bought something from you. I'm telling you that there's an error, and what sort of email did you just send me? Why should you send me this? What have we discussed that warrants this kind of error? I'm telling you that there is a problem, and you're writing this kind of sarcastic email to me. Why? So the guy wrote back and was all apologetic and said, okay, can you just show me where the error is? So I had to go back to my software. I had to start getting them screenshots. I had to start giving them the procedure for testing and discovering the errors, and I sent it back to them. And then the guy now got back to me to say, oh, it is true, those errors are present. My team are young, they don't know how to test, they don't know how to do this, they don't know how to do that. We now acknowledge that the errors are present and we are fixing it. After about a day, they got back to me and told me the errors were fixed. I tested again and still found errors, and at that point I was like, I can't work with this guy. So now I have the software with me. When I have time, I'll probably dig into the code myself. It's an awesome piece of software. They did a very good job, but there's an attitude problem. So when you're hiring a programmer, it is very, very important to not just look at the technical side of the programmer. It's not just enough to look at how technically sound the programmer is. You need to look at the attitude of the programmer, because a lot of the time you discover that attitude has a great role to play in your success with working with a programmer. If you have a programmer who has a short fuse, you would always run into problems with that programmer. So it's very, very important. That's number 7, that you consider the technical character. You consider the technical skill of the programmer. Can he deliver? Can he write code? Can he do this job? But at the same time, you want to also see that programmer has a very good character. The person must be ready to listen to you. The person must be ready to interact with you. The person must be ready to fix problems when problems occur and work with you through your project, because yes, it's your money, you are paying for that software. Now, number 8 is where possible, try to hire a programmer who has a business background. You see, personally, that is one of my strengths as a programmer. One of my strengths as a programmer is because I have a business background. Now, most programmers know code and they write code, but they don't think about the business side of things. They want to get things working, and they actually do things and write code that works. So they build your applications that work and work very well. They meet your specification. But if they don't have a business background, there are certain things that they won't think about, which at the end of the day, when you now want to use as a business person, you'll find out sometimes that sometimes the code they have written and the interface they have built is even too technical for even you to use. Why? Because they did not have the business background to be able to break things down. So where possible, if you get a programmer who has a business background, that is a plus. That's the kind of person you want to hire. That is a good character, is technically sound, and then there's a plus that programmer has a business background. Then you found someone who you should work with. Now, when all of this is in place, the next thing you want to think of is that you want to agree on price. There has to be solid agreements when it comes to you hiring a programmer and giving out your jobs. you need to have solid agreements. There has to be agreement on price. There has to be agreement on time. And when I say time this time around, I mean the turnaround time. How long will the programmer take to do the job? Let's go back to that job description we just looked at, and let me start showing you some of these things. Now, when you look here, am I there? Okay, yeah. When you look here, you see this guy is saying that he wants to complete the job in 7 days. That's a turnaround time. So if the turnaround time is 7 days, then you want to make sure that it is 7 days. So if the job is not delivered in 7 days, then you have a right to raise a dispute. You can decide to say, okay, I'm going to raise a dispute because this guy has not met the turnaround time. If there's going to be a delay, then you expect that the programmer with a good attitude will communicate to you and let you know, oh, there's going to be a delay, and these are the reasons why there's going to be a delay, so that you are aware. Because sometimes you also have created a deadline for yourself because the programmer gave you a deadline. So you have to have that at the back of your mind. So there has to be an agreement on price. If you are agreeing on $200, then you should know that there's an agreement on $200. If you are agreeing on $400, if you are agreeing on $1,500, if you are agreeing on $5,000, you need to know the price well and clearly stated and written out based on the futures and the things and the job description that you want. So if those things are not in place, then it means that a breach has occurred in the terms of contract. All right, so it's very, very important that anything you can think of, you need to discuss with your programmer in terms of contract, price, timing, how many revisions will be done, after development support, upgrades, updates. These are things that you need to ask. For instance, if a programmer is going to do a job for you and you have given the programmer a specification for the job, you need to still ask the programmer, after you have done this job, what if I need an upgrade? How much are you going to charge me for upgrade? Is it that you are going to charge me per hour? Is it that you are going to charge me for the project, and so on? So you know and discuss all of those things from the word go. Now, this is very, very important. Very, very important point number 10. Whatever you have agreed with your programmer, don't do a call. Don't do a voice call. Don't do a Zoom call and just assume that you have agreed. Write everything down. Don't just do verbal agreements online. Write everything down, because in point number 11, I'm going to be asking you an Iskral service. What's an Iskral service? An Iskral service is a service online where what happens is that you have, okay, let me just write that out so that you can see it later. When you say Iskral, an Iskral service is a service online. An Iskral service is a service online where what you do is that you have it works like this. There's a project. You are the one initiating the project. This is you. All right. Now this is the Iskral. I'm just going to say ES, and then this is the programmer here. Let me say P. All right. So once you and the programmer have agreed on the project, you have met, you have discussed, you have agreed on the project. Now you are in Nigeria. All right. This programmer is probably in India, and you want to work together. Now, you, of course, don't expect yourself to just send money to this programmer because you are not sure. And then once the money is in this Iskral account, the programmer sees that the money has been paid into the Iskral account, but he cannot withdraw the money from the Iskral account. So this is like a trusted party acting as an intermediary. So the $1,000 is sitting in an account where the programmer can see it, but he cannot touch it, he cannot withdraw it. What happens next is that you also now will expect that the programmer should start work. And that's why I said in the last point I made that you should make sure that you write everything down. And make sure that you are using the platform that the Iskral service has created. And make sure that you detail everything you expect the programmer to do, and you get the programmer to agree that those are the things he's going to do for you. So once the money is in the Iskral account, you now expect the programmer to complete the job with the list of features that you have given, exactly the way you have given, and then only when that job has been completed and you are satisfied with it, will you release the money that is in this Iskral account to the programmer. So what happens if this programmer decides not to do the job, or has not been able to do the job to your specification? Or what happens if the programmer feels that he has done everything you agreed on, but for reasons best known to you, you don't want to make a payment to the programmer? What happens? Then either of you can go and raise a dispute, okay? So you go back to the Iskral service and then you raise a dispute. And then the dispute is now, excuse me, Iskral, this guy agreed to do a job for me, and then you now show your evidence. And that's why I said document everything. Don't agree with someone outside the Iskral platform. So you have to document everything. This guy has agreed to do this job. So and so are the details of the job that he had agreed to. But after XYZ days, he has refused to do the job. And this is a proof of our log of communication. This is everything we agreed. And this is what he has done. He has not done the job. So the Iskral service now will now look at that dispute, and then they will now make a judgment. So either you win or lose the judgment will be dependent on how solid your case is. And that is why I said make sure that you document everything, because in the day of trouble, your documentation is what will save you. So make sure that you have documented everything. Make sure that a programmer does not take you outside the Iskral platform for a deal. When it takes you outside the Iskral platform for a deal, if anything happens, there's nobody to sit in the middle. Alright, there's nobody to sit in the middle. So it's very important, especially if you're hiring the programmer for the first time. When you have used the programmer for more than once, maybe you have used the programmer once, twice, 3 times, and then you both are familiar, you can decide to take your transaction off the Iskral platform and you deal with the programmer directly, of course at risk to you. But before you get to a level where trust has been established between you and the programmer, it is very, very important to not take a deal outside the Iskral service, so that your deal stays on the Iskral service, so that if there is a problem, or if that programmer has refused to do what he or she has agreed to do for you, then you have a dispute, and then people will mediate in that case, and they will deliver a judgment, and they will now tell you, okay, you are wrong, you should have paid the programmer, let's release the money, or the programmer is at fault, since he did not do what he promised to do, we are sending your money back to you. Now, the next thing you want to do when hiring a programmer is that you should listen to feedbacks and ideas. Listen. Sometimes you think you have it all figured out, only to realize that you really have missed a lot of points. Now, and a lot of the time, the programmer will be in a very good position to point out to you some of the mistakes you are making. So you need to be teachable. If you are not open to fresh ideas and you are very rigid, at the end of the day, the programmer will do what you ask him to do. And then, because you did not listen to inputs and ideas, you would end up having a software that does not really do what you thought it would do. So have an open mind when you are hiring a programmer and listen to input from the programmer as well. Now, another very important point you need to have in mind is that where possible, ask for what we call a framework. Ask that the developer does the job with a framework. Let me go back to the board and just try to show you what I'm talking about. Now, when you talk about a framework, what does a framework mean? Now, a framework is like, how do I explain it? A framework is, how do I put a framework? Okay, it's like this. A framework is like a platform around a programming language. Let me put it like that. So let's assume that what you want to do is a web application. All right. A web application means that the software will run on the web. So let's assume you want to do a web application. All right. That's a website. The application is like a website. It's running on a website. If that's what you want to do, you have different technologies that you can use. An example of the technology that you can use is PHP. PHP is quite very popular. You can go ahead and just do a search for PHP and see what PHP is all about. So PHP is quite popular. Now, if that application is going to be built in PHP, the programmer who you are hiring can decide to just write PHP raw. But when a programmer writes PHP raw, that programmer will be writing that PHP to his own standards and specification because he's writing raw. Now, what you should do wherever possible is that you should insist that your programmer use a framework. So for PHP, for instance, there are a lot of PHP frameworks. Now, the reason why you want to insist that a framework be used is so that later in future, if you need to do a revision or you need to do anything, you can look for another programmer who is familiar with that framework. And then that programmer will work based on that framework instead of trying to work on a code base that was written by a programmer on his own standards. I really don't know how. Let me give you an example. Let's do a search for PHP framework very quickly. Let me just go back to my browser and let's do a search for PHP framework. Maybe that would help you understand what I'm talking about very quickly. Now, for PHP frameworks, for instance, you have so many of PHP frameworks. Let's just look at 10 best PHP frameworks in 2008. What I just did is to search for PHP frameworks. Let's just look at best PHP frameworks for 2019. We have Laravel, we have CodeIgniter, we have there are so many. Okay, let's look at them. So we have Laravel, we have Symfony, we have Yi, we have Cake PHP, we have CodeIgniter, we have Zen Framework, we have Falcon, we have Fuel PHP, and so on and so forth. So what happens here is this: instead of writing PHP raw to the programmer's specification by the programmer himself, when you choose a programmer who does PHP based on the Laravel framework, for instance, you have some assurance that if you need a programmer next time, you can look at, or you can look for another programmer who knows Laravel, and that programmer should be able to work with that code base quickly. So if you look at the job that we looked at earlier, let me try and go back to that job. Can I find it? Okay, good. If you look at the job description here, you would see that some of the developers are posting that they can do Laravel. All right, and then you see it again, Laravel. Then if you look again, you see Laravel keeps coming up over and over again because Laravel is a PHP framework. Here's Laravel again. Let me see. Here's Laravel again. Okay. Here's Laravel again. All right. Let me see. Is it mentioned anywhere else? So you have PHP developers who tell you, okay, I can do Laravel. Here's Laravel again. Here's Laravel again. Here's Laravel again. Here's Laravel again. Then let's look at the job. Is the job done in Laravel? The job is done in Laravel. So because that job is done in Laravel now, the developer will be able to get a lot of the project owner is getting a lot of people who do Laravel who can just take up the project. Unlike if the job was to be done in straight PHP, then there will be issues because you have to first go back to read the code base and understand the code base before you can now try to implement something based on it. So please, wherever possible, make sure that you insist that your programmer use a PHP framework. Oh, time is really fast spent. I don't want to exceed 1 hour. But let me just add this quickly. When you're hiring a developer, now when you're hiring a developer, try not to limit yourself to local developers alone. You see, when you limit yourself to local developers alone, you may discover that your options are limited. But when you open up yourself to developers from all over the world, you get a lot of new ideas. You get people from all over the world who are ready and willing to work with you. So don't limit yourself to just local developers. If you can find a very good local programmer, it's good because it's easy to have face-to-face interaction. The programmer can come to your office, you can review things together, you can test things together and all of that. Now, however, it's always a good idea to try and take your projects to global platforms. Now, global platforms like Fiverr, like I just showed you Freelancer, I showed you Upwork. These are places where you can get people to do your jobs for you. They will do your jobs for you. You get quality programmers to do your jobs for you. And sometimes you get very good prices, very, very good prices. But don't limit yourself to just local programmers. Look beyond local programmers. I would like to stop here for tonight because time is fast spent. Usually I don't want to exceed 1 hour, so I'll just stop here tonight, and then in the next video we'll go further into softwares. Please, if you have not watched the first and second video, I recommend that you go back to those videos and you watch those videos. Now, I would echo this again. Now, this is a video series as a part of the Software Swarm. If you want to become a part of the Swarm, I stated this in the first video, I stated it in the second video. In the Software Swarm, what we are doing is simple. You see, all these things that I just covered now are things that we will do for you. So by being a part of the Software Swarm, what you will do over the next 12 months is that we will build 3 softwares and we'll distribute it amongst members of the Software Swarm. Now, the members we are talking about will not be many, because if we have too many people, we would end up spoiling the market, because that's what we do in Nigeria. We will just end up competing and fighting for the same market. So we'll have just a few people, and then over a 12-month period, we are going to build 3 amazing softwares. Now, each of the members of the Swarm will now go ahead to sell their branded copies of the software for a price that they choose, and they can make money. Please refer to the first video to see the potential in this. Refer to the second video to see the potential in this. If you cannot find the videos, you can just do me an email. If you're on my WhatsApp group, you can do me a WhatsApp chat, and I will send those videos to you so that you have a complete information about how the Software Swarm membership works. Now, the moment you are a part of the Swarm, you get the opportunity to get this software, so you don't have to go through all of this. We'll do all the work for you. We'll write the softwares, we brand the softwares in your name, and then you are given the software to start your software business with. you don't need to learn code. You can actually hire a programmer to do it for you, and then as part of the Software Swarm group, or the Software Swarm Club, you would also have access to 3 softwares built over a period of 12 months, and then you can hit the market with those softwares and make money with software. So if you want to join that club, you can just do me an email. If you're on WhatsApp, you can do me a WhatsApp. For now, it's just 150,000 naira to join, and you have 3 softwares. That's the cheapest you would get anywhere. That's one of the best deals you can think of. And if you look at the first video, look at the second video, you can have an idea of what you can make in the market. So creating a software is exciting. It's one of the very profitable business ventures you can do. If you don't know code, you can always hire a programmer to do something for you. I've given you some of the steps tonight, and in subsequent videos we'll go further and we'll look at more topics that you need to